Vinicius Jr. grew up as a Brazilian wonderkid, but by the age of 17, the whole country laughed at him. He was able to sign for Real Madrid for 45 million euros, and for the first 3 years was labeled a flop until he finally became the best football player in the world. But despite his talent, he has also become the most hated player in all of Spain. So, how did he do it? How did a 45 million euro flop become the best, but also the most hated player in the world? This is the full story of Vinicius Jr. Vinicius Jr. was born on the 12th of July 2000 in São Gonçalo, Brazil, a poor area in Rio de Janeiro. Vinny's first taste of football came in 2006 when his father took him to a feeder academy associated with Flamengo, where Vinicius was first documented as a left back, but very quickly they realized that he was destined to play higher up the pitch, as even from a young age he was lightning quick and could do magic with the ball at his feet. Vinny's family was poor, so much so that he had to go and live with his uncle just to be able to shorten the distance to training. But luckily for the family, when he turned 10 years old, he was handed his first youth contract with Flamengo, and the family started to receive financial aid from the club. This was a big deal because Flamengo were one of the biggest clubs in all of Brazil, meaning his family started to see his football ability as the ticket to a better life. And as time went on, they started to believe this more and more because Vinny dominated football at youth level, really making a name for himself. And at 16 years old, he got the call-up to play for Brazil's under-17 team in the South American Championship. In this tournament, Vinicius toyed with his opponents and scored 7 goals, winning the tournament and finishing as the best player. And this is probably the best time he's had with the Brazilian national team in his whole career, because as time went on, things wouldn't go too well for him in his country. But more on that later. Now, this is when the biggest clubs in the world really started to take notice of the young Brazilian, as he was being talked about as the next Neymar, and Barcelona wanted to get their hands on him so badly that they were ready to pay Flamengo his release clause of 30 million euros. But Real Madrid weren't ready to lose another Neymar to Barcelona, so they got Flamengo to offer Vinny a new contract with a new release clause of 45 million euros just to outbid Barca. And just like that, on the 10th of August 2010, Real Madrid got their hands on the next Brazilian wonderkid. But as much as Real thought they got a superstar, everyone in Brazil was laughing at this transfer because Vinny Jr. had only just made his senior team debut 10 days before this signing, where he only played for 20 minutes. So Real Madrid broke the world transfer record for an under-19 player with major risks attached, as he was completely unproven, which led the whole country to think they got scammed. And for a while, they'd be right, until one day they wouldn't be right anymore. But we're gonna have to wait for that. For now, since Vinicius was under the age of 18, he couldn't get a work permit in Spain. So before he could join the Spanish Giants, he had to spend the next 2 seasons at Flamengo, where things were quite rocky, to say the least. In his first season, he played a total of 37 games, where he only managed to score 4 goals and get 1 assist, which resulted in a lot of criticism from the Brazilian media. He was not playing well. He had poor decision-making and no end product, and with the 45 million euro price tag looming over his head, he was under even more pressure. He did manage to end the season strong though, and actually carried this into his second season in Brazil, where he scored 10 goals and registered 3 assists in 32 games. As his overall game improved drastically, he was happy on the pitch, always smiling and dancing, and now he had just turned 18 years old, meaning he finally got his dream move to Real Madrid. But little did he know that things were going to get very difficult for him. On the 20th of July 2018, Vinicius Jr. was presented as a Real Madrid player, and from the very start, something was just off. In his presentation ceremony, he struggled to do some simple tricks, and it was looking like the pressure of the biggest club in the world was going to be too much for him. When he arrived, he began playing in the B team until the end of September, when he was brought on as a late substitute to make his debut for the club. A month later, on the 31st of October, he was handed his first start in a Copa del Rey match, where he picked up 2 assists in a 4-0 win, and just 4 days later, he scored his first goal as he came on as a substitute against Real Valladolid. Things were looking good. He was becoming a regular starter, and by the end of February, he got his first call-up to the Brazilian national team. But everything came crumbling down on the 6th of March in a Champions League game against Ajax, where Vinny would suffer a ligament tear that ended his season on the spot. As he recovered for the 1920 season, a few things had changed. Zinedine Zidane was back at Real Madrid for his second stint as manager, and they had just spent 100 million euros to sign Eden Hazard, who, unfortunately for Vinny, was a left winger, meaning he was going to struggle to get into that starting 11, and when he would be played out of position. Even when Hazard was performing poorly, he was still chosen over Vinny because Zidane had to try to make his transfer work since he was the one who signed off on the 100 million euro deal. It also didn't help that Vinny seemed to have lost any good form he had from last season. The same criticisms rang true again. He had no end product, he lacked composure, and it would get so bad that the Real Madrid fans would even boo him. When Vinny finally scored his first goal that season, he broke down in tears on the pitch as it had been 8 months since he was able to find the back of the net. Vinicius ended the season with 29 appearances and only 3 goals, and despite being crowned a La Liga champion, this was far from what he was hoping to achieve in Spain. But heading into the 2021 season, things just went from bad to worse, as now his teammates were starting to turn on him. This is footage of Karim Benzema at halftime of a Champions League match telling Ferland Mendy, "Brother, don't play to him. On my mother's life. He's playing against us." This is how bad things got for Vinny. Karim Benzema, a leader in the squad, telling his teammates to avoid passing to him. And remember, Vinny's still only 21 years old at this point, meaning this could have and probably should have broken a young player like him. Real Madrid ended this season trophyless, and there was a lot of frustration in the fan base, and for some reason, the fans were targeting all their hate at Vinny, even though Eden Hazard was playing just as badly and cost twice as much. Barcelona fans were also enjoying this very much, as they were so close to signing him 4 years ago, thinking he would be the next Neymar. But despite all the similarities in their style of play, now people were saying he would never be as good as Neymar because he just had no end product and wasn't able to score goals consistently. But things were about to change, because heading into the 21-22 season, Real Madrid appointed a new manager in Carlo Ancelotti, and seemingly overnight, something changed within Vinny. He was done being the laughingstock and was ready to become what he was meant to be, a footballing great. Now, over these next few years, Vinicius Jr. would go on to become the best, but also the most hated player in all of Spain. But before this season began, he was called up to play in the Copa America, where Brazil made it all the way to the final, but unfortunately were beaten by Messi in Argentina. Vinny didn't really play a big role in this squad, but it was his first major tournament with the national team, so it was significant for him. As Vinicius Jr. landed back in Madrid after the summer of 2021, he was introduced to his new manager, Carlo Ancelotti, and it seems like it was love at first sight, because this season we saw a whole new Vinny. It's also important to note the amount of work Vinny had been putting in, especially on his finishing, and this really showed as he opened the season scoring the 4th in a 4-1 victory for Real. Having come off the bench, which is what cemented his starting spot over Hazard under Ancelotti, Real fans were starting to wonder if this is a new Vinny or just a one-month wonder, because they had never seen this level of composure from him before, and he just kept getting better. On the 30th of October, he bagged a brace to beat Elche 2-1 and send Real top of the table. These were his 8th and 9th goals of the season, meaning just 2 months into the season, he had broken his goal-scoring record of the previous 3 seasons. And he didn't stop there. He had quickly formed a killer partnership with none other than Karim Benzema, the one who just 1 year before was instructing the team to avoid passing to him. And by the end of this season, Benzema would go on to take back what he said, as he claims Vinny came back a changed man this year. All in all, this season was amazing for Real Madrid. They lifted La Liga and the Champions League trophy, and this time round, Vinny played crucial roles in both victories. He finished this season with 22 goals and 20 assists, which was more than his previous 3 combined, and he also showed up in the biggest games, scoring in the Champions League semi-final against Man City and then scoring the only goal in the final against Liverpool, meaning he was the reason Real Madrid were the champions of Europe. He was named as the Champions League Young Player of the Season and placed in both the La Liga and the Champions League teams of the season. Even though Benzema was the star man at Real Madrid this season, eventually going on to pick up the Ballon d'Or, it was very clear that Vinicius Jr. had finally evolved and become one of the best players at world football. But now, since his performances on the pitch were no longer something that people could attack, and since a lot of rival fans love to hate on Vinny, they turned to the color of his skin instead, as he became a serial victim to many racist chants, attacks, and comments. Vinicius Jr. is a provocative player. He showboats, he dances, he loves an argument, and this makes him an easy target for the racists, and this is something that would continue to get worse over the coming seasons. Now, heading into the 2022-23 season, he kept his form up and actually bettered his output tally as he ended the season with 23 goals and 21 assists. Real Madrid fell short in La Liga, losing it out to Barcelona, and they were knocked out in the semi-finals of the Champions League by the eventual winners, Man City. But Vinicius still cropped up in big games like the round of 16 against Liverpool and the semi-final first leg against City. Vinicius did manage to lift the Copa del Rey, and this season also had a World Cup sandwiched in the middle of it, but as is now the common case, Brazil underperformed, meaning there isn't really much to talk about. This season, it seemed like it was the world against Vinny, as he was by far the most tackled player in all of Europe, as so many players hated his style of play and would often find his trickery insulting, so there was a lot of extra aggression placed on him. The issue here was that the referees weren't doing much to protect Vinny, and they often let things go by. There were also a number of incidents from fans showing pure hatred against Vinny, like when there was an effigy hung of him, and the real boiling point of this year was the penultimate game of the season where Real Madrid faced Valencia. Vinny had been receiving racist insults and comments quite frequently in many away grounds this season, but none seemed to be as bad as this game. Throughout the entire match, the chants and the comments were louder than ever, with the referee even having to pause the game. Vinicius walked up to the crowd and pointed at a specific few who had been hurling abuse at him all game. Tensions were very clearly high in the stadium, and towards the end of the match, a fight broke out amongst the players. Vinny was grabbed from his neck and he retaliated, pushing the guy off, but the referee decided to hand Vinny a red card for this. So, after being hurled abuse at and attacked, he was getting sent off, and this was obviously not going to end well for La Liga. Vinicius took to social media to attack the league's handling of this entire situation, and support poured in from the world of football. Vinny was fed up with all the hate, but he was just going to take this and turn this into fuel, as he was eager to meet Valencia again to get his revenge. So, now heading into the 23-24 season, his 6th year at Madrid, Vinicius Jr. was handed the number 7 jersey as Eden Hazard finally left the club. Karim Benzema also left to the Saudi League, meaning Vinicius Jr. was officially the main man at Madrid, and with the addition of Jude Bellingham and the continued growth of Rodrigo, boy, were they ready to cook. For the 3rd season in a row, Vinicius scored more goals than the last, as this year he picked up 24 goals in 39 games, but his performances were more than just stats, as he was simply unstoppable. On the 31st of October, Real Madrid announced a contract extension, which meant Vinicius was guaranteed to stay at the club for another 4 years. This was especially significant since people were speculating that he wanted out of Spain due to the heavy levels of racism, but Vinny preferred to take revenge, and in March of this season, he finally got to return to Valencia for the first time since his sending off. The game didn't start as he hoped, as Real Madrid found themselves 2 goals down, and, as expected, Vinicius was playing in his usual expressive style, and Valencia fans were abusing him for it. Luckily for Vinny, he was able to score 2 goals to level the game, celebrating the second, creating an iconic image in front of the Valencia fans. Jude Bellingham went on to score a late winner, but the referee blew the whistle right before the ball went in, meaning this historic game was overshadowed by a refereeing error. Despite this controversy, Real Madrid carried on to have a fantastic end to the season as they comfortably lifted the La Liga title, with Vinny finishing in the team of the tournament for the 3rd year in a row. In the Champions League, though, Vinny would step up his game even further as he finished as the player of the tournament with 6 goals and 5 assists, with crucial goals in both the semi-finals and the final to lift his 2nd Champions League. A couple crazy stats about this. He's now scored in the Champions League semi-final 3 years in a row, and he's the youngest player to ever score in 2 separate Champions League finals. Talk about a big game player. As the summer rolled on, Brazil played another Copa America with Vinicius, but yet again, nothing really to talk about. But this definitely does not take away from the season Vinicius Jr. had. He used to be told that he will never be as good as Neymar because he lacked the composure, but now he's on track to do what Neymar failed to do his whole career, as he is being talked about as the best football player in the world and is the favorite to lift the Ballon d'Or. My guess is that this has all happened because he subscribed to Top Bins. You should try it too. Vinicius Jr., you legend.